Hi everyone, I'm Sandra Ingerman and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and we're glad you're here. And you know, after we hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, did you see how quick we jumped another 100? So make sure you go over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It doesn't put you on any lists or anything like that. It just keeps us fluid and keeps our program growing, and it keeps it actually even sends us a few dollars from the advertising every month to keep our program fluid and in the flush.
Yeah, we're getting, I know Renee takes care of the YouTube comments. We're getting extraordinary emails from people, how they really rely on our show. And I was just writing something very recently saying that back in the old days, whenever those were, kids used to sit around on their grandmother's laps, and their grandmothers and grandfathers would tell them stories about what life can be like and how you get through the tough times. And that was part of family life, was sharing. What do you do during the tough times? And we don't have that now anymore. We have instructions of how to use devices, but we don't have roadmaps about how to get through the challenging times. And so I was talking to Renee this morning about how I just read two articles, and they were written for women, but Renee and I were talking about how men fit into this category too. Most of my male students, my husband, you can relate. I know when we talk about it, you can relate. And I read this article in Women's Health this morning about how sensitive women have become. And again, we're putting men into this category too. And that people are becoming so empathetic, and they're taking so much on right now. And they don't see a way out of the struggles that we're in. And so people are really going down. I mean, really going down big time. I mean, the emails I'm getting are really extraordinary, how people are going down. I'm finding it hard to do business with other people because it's either I went down and started yelling, "Stop stressing me out," or the other person went down and starts yelling at me, "Stop stressing me out." It's really crazy. I've never experienced anything like this before. And then I was reading in a blog from a female doctor who was saying she can't even give supplements to most of her patients anymore because they've become too sensitive to everything. And I've been having a fight with my doctor because he doesn't understand why everything he gives me puts me in the ER, even if it's some over-the-counter thing. And it's the way of the world right now. And I think it has, they were talking about in Women's Health that this population of sensitive people were always the shamans, the healers, and the artists, and the visionaries in indigenous cultures, and that there's really no place for all the sensitives right now. But the world is filled with sensitives right now. So is it that the vibration of the planet, in some way, the Earth's vibration is shifting? Is the frequency shifting in some way, that we're all getting impacted? I don't know, but I said to Renee, I think it's important for us to hold space for the sensitive people, including, I put myself in that too.
I love that. And I think I always pretend that I'm like a really hard shell, and but I'm mush, and so like lately, there's just been so much coming at us that there's just no way to not have it infiltrate your dreams or infiltrate your mood. I mean, for some reason lately, I just wake up grumpy, and it's just like that's unusual for me because, I mean, maybe when I was in my 30s, grumpy was a norm, but it hasn't been in my 40s and 50s, and certainly not in my 60s. And like, there's just doesn't seem to be enough spiritual tools like that you get through one day. And I always think about something this woman told me in my 20s was that you can always restart the day over, Renee. If you got up grumpy and it's noon, you could just kind of wash yourself off and start. And then you just, everywhere you look, it's like not easy news. I mean, as simple as my housekeeper's son, who was in the wrong place in the wrong time, got shot. I mean, so you just like are living your life, and there's just so many things, and up in Seattle, like the car thefts are on the rise, the shootings are on the rise, and it's just like, why are we so angry right now, and why is it looking like such a hostile place to live? And I usually look beyond these things, but lately there's nowhere to look.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I feel like in some ways, people in government, people in our society, people in our communities have not been realistic, because ever since I was a kid, I mean, I started getting this understanding as a kid. And I said, if parents can't put food on the table for their kids, they're going to start taking what they need from others. And so, that was pretty advanced understanding for somebody around 7 years old. But I've always believed that, and we're seeing it now post-COVID. People are in, we have people who are too sensitive. Renee and I were talking about all of us who have gotten into a place of inertia and are still trying to figure out, how do you even get into your car and go back outside and engage back in life again? And then you have the amazing increase in violence. I mean, besides the wars going on, but the local, I mean, where I live, the violence is up an amazing amount. But I've always seen that. Santa Fe is a blend of Hispanics who came here from Spain, the Native American community, of course, who was here first, and I should have named them first, I'm sorry. And there's some Anglos, and of course the Anglos are very loud, and so people think New Mexico is more Anglo, but we're not. And so the violence here, I've been here for close to 40 years, and the violence here is what we're seeing now in the rest of the country, where people are very divided, don't communicate well together. And then people are very sensitive right now. And so you have a lot of people, you have people who are trying to figure out what they need to take from others to make it. You have people trying to figure out how to protect themselves right now. And you have people who are overly sensitive right now and are kind of looking at, how do you bury yourself into the earth for the next 3 years until, something changes. So we're in an incredible time of change. And we've talked about this on so many shows. And when you watch nature and a storm coming through, the chaos that gets thrown up, the whirling around of the leaves and the wind blowing and branches flying. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're in the midst of a real storm. And so the real question is, how do you take care of yourself during this time so that you're not getting so caught up in everybody else's bubbles? And we've been talking about bubbles on the show, and now you're seeing people being in their own bubble being talked about in all the news stories now. That's become a common, actually, it's becoming common vocabulary about people living in their own bubbles. Interesting.
It is. I was thinking this morning because I noticed my sister was on yet another vacation. And the other day I took my friend to the doctor off of the island, and I was very aware that I didn't even know how to be in the spaciousness outside of my computer and outside of my workday. And like for years, having these adventures and going places was like a good decade of my life. I was in a different city all the time. And now it's like it feels really closed in, and yet being bombarded with information. And I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was really aware of that the bubble I was living in wasn't the bubble she was living in, because in her world, the pictures from Ukraine were false. By summer, we were going to need to have a backup supply of our own food and make sure you've got lots of canned goods, Renee. There's going to be a food shortage. And I'm thinking, like, we're on the same earth plane here. How can what I'm seeing be so different than what you're seeing? And it adds for more of that separation, more of that stress, and as a finely tuned shaman, I wonder, like, am I checking into the wrong upper world? Are we splitting so far that we're going to have different worlds to travel to? What do you think about that? I was kind of like, really, you're smart and this is what you're seeing?
Yeah, we've actually done 2 shows on that. We've actually done 2 shows on the world splitting into different dimensions. And I talked about how ISIS shared with me when I first met her that there was going to be a split in dimensions. And how I keep framing it in, and we talked about it on the show before, I use the Anasazi as an example of that. The Anasazi were a very, very ancient people who lived here probably 800 years ago. And they lived in New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. And they were very peaceful. It looks like they were very little people. And from what the scientific evidence shows is they literally disappeared all at the same time, right in the middle of dinner. And I saw that the very first time I went to my first Anasazi ruin, and I went into Bandelier and I heard children laughing in some other world, and I smelled the smoke of food cooking, and it was obviously from a different world. There was nobody at Bandelier. And I started talking to Isis about it. And then for years, everywhere I went in the world, I had everybody journeying to the Anasazi. How did you do it? How did you make that ascension? What's life like for you? And, they live an incredibly peaceful life and are very happy. And I've watched through teaching people how to connect with nature as Renee does. That's the focus of both of our work. I've noticed that some of my students moved into another dimension of reality where they have absolutely no idea what's going on here. and they're happy and they're joyful and they're in a place of inner peace. And so the challenge that comes up, I think, for all of us, especially if you're sensitive, is the guilt factor. How do I leave the world of suffering and understand that I've done my work and that there is another dimension of reality that I can live in? Not saying that you're going to ascend, you might just stay here in the neighborhood that you're living in, but you have a different presence and you have a different way of holding the world through this crazy place, because we need space holders. If we don't have space holders, this whole collective that we have is going to collapse. And so we can be space holders, we can take care of ourselves. And so how do we move through the selfish seed that got planted into us, that if you're not taking care of others constantly, you're not a good person?
That's really interesting, because most of the time for the last so many years, I'd been living in that bubble that you were just talking about. And for some reason, lately, there must be holes in my bubble, so that the other stuff is seeping in. And so I'm going to have to look at that. And I think you're going to take us on a journey for this one. Is that so we could get a little more clear about this? I think that we're really in a time where, in my work, I teach people how to do a wind zip. That is so important every day to zip up, because there's so much bombarding us. And to be able to say, this is mine, this is not mine, this is mine, this is not mine, is probably paramount to, when you wake up grumpy for some reason, is this even my grumpiness?
Right. Yeah, it's getting, and that's what this article was referring to, is in women's health, is that people are becoming so empathetic that they no longer know, are their tears their tears? Is their anger their anger? We're just soaking, we're digesting everything. And as I get my drum to do this journey, I just want to share this story before I do this. I had it was about 30 years ago. There used to be a Vedic astrologer who came through New Mexico in Albuquerque. He lived in Canada. And he was the most psychic person I ever met in my whole life. He scared me. That's how psychic he was. He told me things that there's no way he could have known about me. And I'd be terrified to see him because of the things that he would say. And I used to...
Sign me up.
He was also the most arrogant person I ever met.
So I had a reading from him.
He was very mean to his clients. And I talked to him about that I was too much of an empath. And he took my hand, he looked at my hand, and he goes, I don't want to hear this from you. He said, how do you think Jesus felt? How do you think Krishnamurti felt? How do you think the Buddha felt? Do you think I want to hear this from you? And then he looks at my hand and he goes, ooh. He said, if you don't figure this one out, you're going to get really sick later on in life. You're not going to die, but you're going to get really sick. And that is exactly what happened to me. And so what he tried to instill in me was the need for self-care versus taking on everything else, because this has been history. The shamans, the healers, the visionaries, the mystics, they've had to walk through these dark times just like we have, and they've had to take care of themselves and not lose themselves during it, so that they could share the really deep wisdom that would be helpful. So it's something to think about as I do this journey, as I lead this journey of about really going within and using your intuition to ask yourself the question, are you in a place where you feel selfish about doing self-care? And what does self-care mean to you? What would it mean to you to take a step back and say, what do I need right now so I can remain engaged in life and not go down with those who are drowning? Does this feel selfish to me? And what is that about? And then maybe when the journey's over, Renee and I can talk to you about simple ways to let go of your guilt.
Guilt, yes.
Yes. So we'll prepare. I'm just going to go off video while I drum. And I'll just kind of prepare you while we're getting ready, that in this journey, unless you have a helping spirit and you're a journeyer already, just go within. Let's keep this simple. If you're a journeyer already and you have a helping spirit, call them in. But if you're not, go within yourself to that deep part of yourself where your intuition speaks to you, as we've talked about on many shows, and ask yourself the question, how do I take care of myself right now with all that's going on the planet, where I use the principle of self-love, which is so important, the love of the Creator, and realize that I must take care of myself during this time so that I can also survive and thrive. And what are the guilt issues that come up for me as I think about taking care of myself and disconnecting from what's happening in the world so that I can be a true space holder? So put that intention in the words that you want, but keep it around self-care and what is the guilt that's holding me back. Here we go. So just allow yourself to imagine dropping down There are sea creatures when they need rest. They can drop hundreds of feet into the sea, into the darkness, to find the nurturance and the rest that they need. So imagine yourself just dropping down like you're one of those amazing sea creatures that knows how to find rest on the bottom of the sea of life. And ask yourself the question, what do I need to take care of myself right now? Am I getting too scattered and overwhelmed? And how do I set a boundary between me and the rest of the world so that I can allow my spirit to shine and be a hollow bone for the divine? And what kind of guilt comes up when I think about taking care of myself? not absorbing all the pain around me, and recognizing that all the pain around me is not part of my journey right now. I might have the strength to be more active later, but right now, I need that rest and regeneration so I can hold space and be ready to serve at a later time. Find one simple thing from your intuition or helping spirit that you can do to take care of yourself right now. And now it's time to come back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So we hope that you had a good experience with that journey. And I realized while I was drumming, I didn't share the end of the story with about the astrologer, but it's perfect now that you're back. I think you'll get a better sense of it. He said to me, if you go into a pharmacy, you'll see rows and rows and rows of what's it called?
Antihistamines?
No, not antihistamines. When you can't digest your food.
I
Heartburn.
know what you're talking.
Yeah. So
anti-gas medicine.
Anti-gas, digestion, all of that for heartburn and for acid reflux. That's what I meant to say. That there are rows and rows of over-the-counter medication for acid reflux, and that's mostly all you see in a pharmacy. And this is what he said to me 30 years ago. So imagine how many rows of medicines are there now. And he said to me, it's a real metaphor for our inability to digest life. And I thought that was a profound statement, and that and those of us who are sensitive, can we digest, or do we need a smaller meal? And self-care comes down to a smaller meal and taking the enzymes you need to digest life.
Mm-hmm. That's just so really true if you think about what's in the pharmacy right now and what we're really needing, to take. And I think one of the tools we were talking about before that I could do is lighten up on myself. If I wake up in a grumpy mood, I'm human. Oh, isn't that interesting? You're a grump today. Stay away. and thank God for my wind walks. I mean, literally, I think if I walk like a couple of miles every day, I don't know what I would be like if I wasn't doing that. I mean, because it's just so stressful. Being on a computer working is such a stressful thing. And not to mention, managing, staff. And then, there's 55 people in the Windwalkers 10-month program. So there's all of that energy holding too. So the more energy I find myself holding, the more tools I need. And the more tools I need. Like this week, I can't tell you how many times I went outside and just really, used the wind whistle tool, which is like, to me, it's a self-soothing tool.
Right.
You blow that energy out and then like, oh, it gets you back in there. So if you don't have a wind whistle, empty out. And it really shifts everything for me.
Yeah, I think those are good words, Renee, of the emptying out. As you all know, I'm obsessed with ceremonies, and so I'm constantly doing while I'm walking. When I get back onto the land that I live on, doing some simple ceremony of making sure that I'm emptying out and giving it to the earth to compost, while making sure when I'm emptying out, the earth receives as love and light and not more toxins to deal with. And we just had, I live in the desert and we're in drought. So we had the amazing gift on 2 days ago, after spring, of getting 4 inches of snow. So I had the best time walking with my husband for 40 minutes, writing love in the snow everywhere. Because when you write love in the snow, or when you write love on the earth after it rains, it seeps into the earth. And that's just a beautiful thing to do. So you think about the little things that we can do that would bring us just a little bit of inner peace. Mm-hmm. Just writing love on the earth will put a smile on your face. You don't want to write love on the earth while you're feeling grumpy or mad or divisive. So little things like that just help to change the space that you're in. And if you could just break the pattern for a second, and you do that for 1 second every day, it starts to build up into something exponential for you and exponential for the collective.
Mm-hmm. One of my other little tricks is my black ball. It's not only is it grounding, I have a lot of black rocks. There's just so much energy that we're mulching, that to say, this is not mine, send everything that's not mine to this rock. I command it right now, send everything that's not mine to this rock. And it shifts me and it shifts me really quickly. And just holding this other one that feels nice and smooth, it keeps me grounded. Because one thing I've noticed lately is that my intuition's working late. Have you noticed that at all? Like a little bit late. Like the other day I opened up an email. I have a big conference coming up in April at UCLA. And I opened up a text message from one of my assistants saying, the notepads arrived. And I didn't even look at the notepads, but I knew there was something wrong on the notepads. They're like, so I checked, the phone number went to a number that was working, but not the number that I wanted it to go to. And I thought to myself, like, well, why didn't I get that before they were printed? Like, is my intuition backspaced? Right. And so I think my intuition went through daylight savings time, and it's like an hour off.
Right. Yeah, my intuition is still intact. I'm still seeing things before they come, but I'm also getting surprises, where things are coming a little bit differently for me. And I hope it's okay. I hope nobody gets mad about this, but I got a wonderful email from my book agent telling me that an old book I wrote in 2006, How to Heal Toxic Thoughts, is selling like crazy right now. And they want a new book from me, which I'm working on. But, it's a little book. It's, I think, less than 100 pages, little tiny tools for when you get grumpy or when you feel you're being attacked or all the things that we're talking about, little tiny tools to just help you through. So I'm not trying to market, but it's such a great little tool. And every single practice that I share in that, I do every day. And so far, it's kept me sane.
and I'm the marketer of the two of us here. So it's in this week's newsletter. So if you haven't signed up on the Shamans on shamanstv.com to get our weekly, we send you an email every time we drop a new show. So we don't use that email list for anything else but to let you know that we drop a new show, and it has one promotional thing from me and one promotional thing from Sandra right in there. But that email list, if you sign up for it, you're only going to get that every Wednesday from us.
Yeah, so remember, Renee and I really love working together and really talking to you. And we do feel like we're, I don't like to use the word grandmother, but we do feel like we're two elders that we've both been through. If you've listened to our stories over the 4 years, my God, what we've both been through. And we know how to walk through the darkness. We just do. And so, and we'll hold space for you if that's what you need. We'll hold space for you and be here every week, and sometimes say things a little bit that might annoy people, but hopefully we're inspiring you and we're holding you in a tremendous amount of love. So blessings, everyone.
Thank you.